Hurrdat Podcast is brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. Pella of Omaha and Lincoln wants every homeowner to have the best quality windows and doors, and they're willing to bet $100 on it. Call the Omaha or Lincoln showroom or go to PellaOmaha.com to find out how you can get $100 and new windows and doors starting at $122 a month. And we're brought to you by the Brickway Cut Spike Lucky Bucket family. You and I... It was
Where's
the cut.
that bottle? Where's the other bottle
So it's gone. It went to bottle heaven.
It did go to bottle heaven,
and we had a heavenly night. Did we not? How many between the two of us? How many? We had
old fashions till the bottle ran out.
It was the Cut Spike bourbon, and it was just incredible. This is the Brickway bourbon. I gotta have you try this. Like here, we'll do this live. Just not gonna have you taste it. Smell it. Like you could just smell that for me for our YouTube audience. Like that doesn't, usually like, woo wee. I tell you.
I mean, we're breathing.
Smell? I don't know. I think they cracked the code.
I tell you what, I absolutely enjoyed that whiskey thoroughly the other night.
Yeah.
We went through the whole bottle and we were begging for more.
It was a joint, by the way. It was a joint 40th birthday for Bo and our dear good friend Bub Wendell, and we had ourselves a great time. But so shouts out to the Brickway Cut Spike Lucky Bucket family. Check them out in the Omaha area, 4 blocks south, 120th and Giles. Make sure you check them out. They're Bo Ruud approved and Nick Bahe approved. So how about that? And we're brought to you by Peerless Energy Systems, the Sullair authorized distributor for Nebraska and Iowa. Sullair is the leading American manufacturer for air compressors. For any air compressor needs, go to peerlessenergy.com. Okay, we are taping this. It is about 1 o'clock on Wednesday, September 25th. And it is, I want to start with this. I wrote down some things, kind of like we did last time, where I have like a thought and then I'll throw it to you. Okay. Yep. So I do think everyone right now needs to take a deep breath in the wake of that loss. Like, it is amazing how quickly the vibe and the tone and the feeling kind of flipped around here. People went from feeling great, undefeated, smashed Colorado, ranked, playoff dark horse talk, Kirk Herbstreit on game day saying Nebraska is going to start 7-0, and then all of a sudden 1 week later and everything is different. And it's important to not try to ride that roller coaster, but I was thinking about like this specific moment and why the reaction has been to kind of hop on that roller coaster, and for a lot of people to kind of maybe even hit the panic button or freak out. I think it's three things. Number one is the obvious one is the past. I mean, I think like this program has consistently fallen apart and lost. Fans all have PTSD from it. So any loss is going to like trigger that emotional sky is falling response. That's the obvious one. The second one, we talked about it, the overtime performance, another one score loss. We're going to stick with this dragons to slay. Basically at Memorial Stadium, a dragon came over Memorial Stadium. Remember when Khaleesi just like burned, what was it, King's Landing? Just burned it to the ground. I think, and just, like basically that burned Memorial Stadium to the ground for another night. Yeah. And so there's that. But the third thing, and I think it's the most prevalent thing, or at least for me is the most prevalent thing, and the reason I think people are like, oh my God, is from how the defense performed. Like, I think people are freaking out and are rattled because the one thing we all felt like we knew about this team is somewhat like, do we? How good is this defense? How good is this defensive line? Like, I think going into the year, we all knew special teams was probably going to be shaky. It was. We go into this season going, okay, Dylan Raiola, 5-star, but he's a true freshman quarterback. They've reloaded in the transfer portal with all these offensive skill guys on the perimeter wide receiver. Who knows what all that's going to look like? Turns out Dylan Raiola is elite, and Nair and Banks are really good, but it's the defense that was underperforming that kind of think has people a little on edge. Like, when something isn't what you thought it would be, it can rattle you. And I cannot believe that any of all the things I thought we'd be talking about this year, I did not think we'd be talking about, like, man, what's up with is the defensive line that good? Is Tony White that, like, what are we talking about with Tony White? Like, all that's going on. What's your read on, or maybe it's all in my sphere of influence of who I've talked to or what I've consumed, that I felt like people are more kind of freaking out than you have, or what's your read on it here on a Wednesday?
I would say
after
that
the first loss,
there's some real, issues I think that, that we may have all noticed, but the dramatic swings is more just the noise of it, right? Like, I don't think that's the reality of this defense. Like, the defense was pretty darn good for most of the season.
Agree.
They've had a bad, a bad couple quarters in the last 2 games, but not necessarily the whole game. They've had just some bad moments, right? So I think we're probably, if we're being honest with ourselves, most of this is everybody just over exaggerating. Like, we swing too high, we swing too low. We're somewhere in between the whole time. And
I'd agree with that.
We need to see more, right? We need to give this team more than 4 games, right? We need to see a 3-game stretch here, and we'll know a lot more, right? Like, coming into the home stretch, if it's getting worse from here, the season's going to be in a way worse place, right? So I think I would say I don't really buy into the drama that just happened this week. It feels like that's an exaggeration, but doesn't mean that they're perfect right now. There's some things that they for sure have to shore up.
Yeah, I mean, it's that cliche thing. You're never as good as you're never as good or as bad as people think you are, or maybe you even think you are. I think the thing that because I agree with you, by the way. I mean, because keep in mind, this defense with largely the same cast of characters, right?
Yeah.
This defense a year ago had the 8th ranked rushing defense in the country, only giving up 92 yards per game. They were 11th in total defense, and they were 13th in scoring defense. Yeah. So it's not like there's no track record of this group with this coordinator performing at a high level.
Over time, they were a good defense, right? Give them more time. I wouldn't expect them to dramatically fall off from what we kind of know about them, right? Now, to me, the big question that we like I said, we were at the party and we had a lot of talk, a lot of great insight from some of our party guests. But the theme that kept coming up is, has the Big Ten gotten a better understanding of the 3-3-5? How is the 3-3-5 in Tony White's scheme, his play? I think this is the first time we've kind of challenged the thought that Tony White's invincible, right?
Right.
I would say that that's more what I am interested in, rather than do we got guys that can physically do it? I think we do. I think they're physically good enough. They're not world beaters, but we got some good players on defense. But this is our first test of, can we regroup and adjust and just solidify what we're doing? We're not going to wholesale make any changes, right? We're going to just shore up the basics of what we've done in this 3-3-5, which has been very successful so far in Tony White's career in the Big Ten. But, Bielema is a good coach, and they had a great scheme. Now, guess what we're going to see a lot more of? It's things of that realm. People are going to just,
it's a copycat sport, okay, well, this Wisconsin did this, or excuse me, Illinois did this, so you're going to start to see more of it.
Yeah.
And you're right. And I don't know how to answer. I don't know football well enough, and obviously don't know the future. So it's hard for me, because I'm with you. I think one of the things that now is a talking point is the 3-3-5. Have people caught up with it? And I don't know how to answer that question.
I don't know if it's have they figured it? I don't think there's a figure out, right? I think it's more the way Tony White calls a game, right? There's always that constant adjustment and shoring up of the things you do, right? Every defense has a weakness. How sound are you in, the beaters that are coming, and being ready to adjust to those beaters, right? That's the whole cat and mouse game of football. Some coordinators and teams are better at that than others. So far, Tony White's been he's been spot on in what he's done. This is his first time where we didn't have an answer for one game, but that's not to me indicative of what we are. That's one game. So if the trend happens when you see about 3 or 4 games in a row where the same things are happening, that's when I'm going to hit the panic button. Yeah. I mean, I've lived through 2 different seasons where some version of that happened, where a defense was getting badly out-schemed, and we could feel it. Everybody in the stadium knew what was going on, and it kept happening, right?
Right.
So there is that world. I don't see that happening right now this season. I think Tony White will adjust. I think he'll shore things up and just kind of get our guys ready to go. But that to me is what I'm looking for this week.
I agree. And along the lines of what you're talking about, I think the good news is, I think everything that you saw on Friday night feels correctable.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it. It's not like they just don't have the physical answers type thing. Like, this isn't, for example, as the injuries mounted and what we and the season unfolded last year, you knew watching this offense, it was like,
there's nothing you
can do. There's no magic scheme change, personnel change, or whatever change you can make that is going to all of a sudden they're going to go from scoring 14 points a game to scoring 30 points per game.
Exactly. Like,
that's not this situation defensively.
Our talent ceiling, we were like, it was a certain level and we weren't going to, there was nowhere else to go. Right. There was nothing else we could do besides like make the game ugly and try to stay in it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was it.
And so that's not what this situation is defensively. Because we've seen instances where you go, I don't know what they don't have the dudes. They don't have the talent. Well, I don't think this is the 95 black shirts or the 2009 black shirts. They're not completely void of talent. Isaac Gifford can play. John Bullock is playing his ass off. We know Ty and Polar Bear like are
solid guys.
Solid players, like, so it's not like they're trotting a bunch of dudes out there where you go, what are you going to do? It's not like that.
It is. But like I said, I think it's the first glimpse of like, are we sound enough in our scheme versus what some of these Big Ten coaches are going to do to us? Can we adjust? And then watch the trend of the next 3 to 4 games. That's that to me is where my mind is before I get anywhere near the panic button. I'm not anywhere near it right now.
But it is, because I'm 1,000% right there with you. But it's an uncomfortable feeling because it's a feeling that no one forecasted.
Yeah.
I don't.
It is, but it's only
maybe that's
only one game.
Yeah,
Remember, it's one game. That's why I'm like.
The other thing I saw, and I used to be the biggest player in this game and do it all the time. I used to love to play the if game. We both did. Like the if Nair doesn't get the ball ripped away from him in the end zone, Nebraska likely wins. If Dylan Raiola doesn't overthrow Lindenmeyer, Nebraska likely wins that game. Or if Nebraska just makes a 39-yard field goal, they win the game. Like, agreed. Like, all it takes is like one of those things to happen and Nebraska wins the game. And the reality is, from a broad sense, like, you are the same. Nebraska's the same team with the same flaws if just one of those things happens. But again, I think I was in the during the Frost era. You and I, our first ballot Hall of Famer if game
What
players.
else could we have done, though?
What else could we have done?
We had to if.
We had
because
to.
We were living in this bizarro that bizarro world of that era is like all those close losses. It's unreal. So
it's unbelievable.
It is a bit of an anomaly, but yeah, we did too much.
But I bring that up to say that, like, take it from me, like, I don't know if I need to be like a scared straight, like I'm in the if game prison and everybody's coming in there. I'm like, listen, man, I've been there, I've done that, man. I lived that life.
I said if 100 days in a row.
You think you know the if game? You ever said if the Akron game wouldn't have been canceled? You ever done that if game, dog? Any of y'all talk about that? I didn't think so. No, I'm here to remind y'all that you don't want to play that game. Like, that's pretty good.
Have you ever said if the Akron game hadn't been canceled?
Hey, allow my partner here to tell you about the if game he played at Michigan State. Yeah, man, what's up? If Connor Cope would have punted it the right direction, we'd have been fine, man. Like,
Big Ten champs.
Big Ten champs. This is Tyler. He plays the if game on Forward Progress, Michigan. Go ahead. Here you go. Yeah, I'm Tyler. I got in the if game after the Forward Progress was not called on Adrian Martinez against Michigan in 2021, and then I ended up here. You guys don't want to end up in here. Like, that's Okay, I took that like 5 examples too far. But I bring that up to say, like, what I found out is the if game is a slippery slope to go down.
Yeah.
The woulda, coulda, shoulda. What I found out over the course of being in that world is it's a pretty hollow and empty game to play. So just like, again, you're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong, but man,
the if game's
a tough game to go because we've been playing that game for 10 straight years.
Well, here's the issues. You can play the if game if you win a lot. If you win a lot, the if game is funner. When you lose a lot, the if game becomes insanity.
It does become insanity because it gets to where you sound crazy.
And we did because we did.
I mean, we lived it. We literally sat in these chairs for 5 years and played the if game after every recap pod. And it got to where we sounded like 2 crazy people.
I think we might have been crazy though.
I think it was still crazy. I'm still ready to go back to prison for the if game prison.
Nick, if you put me back, I would if it again. I would if it. I would if it one more time for 5 years.
Man.
Same thing happens, I'd if it again. You can't. There's no way around it.
Yeah. And what would you say the low point of the if game was for you? The Akron rain out.
I ifed the Northwestern onside kick. It was a bad day. It was a bad day.
Let's go around the room and find rock bottom, and you just go around. My lowest moment was when they played in Ireland. I swore to everybody I knew in public that if he wouldn't have kicked that onside kick, that'd have been just fine. I've not been the same since.
I once said if Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't muff that punt against Illinois, we were going to win a national championship. If. Only if.
Oh, my God. We are if.
We are
the if. Okay, speaking of things we've talked about a million times, I guess we'll kind of have this conversation one more time, just if you've had a new thought, because it was interesting on Matt Rule's Monday press conference. He kind of circled back to the close loss stuff, like circling back to like talking about guys tightening up, and he noticed that like Dylan didn't tighten up, but some of the veterans tightened up, and we've had this conversation a million. The if game we've played a million times, and we've also played the Dr. Phil, like, now what are you gonna do when you go for it on 4th down and you didn't make, we have played that.
Don't squeeze. Don't squeeze.
We've played that. We've talked about this a million times. Like, is it just, what's it going to take? Like, how do we, if you have no new thought, we can move on? I don't know. It's so interesting that we're back. This is why I felt like it was so important to the first time that dragon came flying over. You slayed that mother.
Yeah.
Because it just, I think it's like there's something about that first one that comes down the pike of a new year.
Well, I felt like the Colorado game, like, sort of did that with the big game mentality. Yes. Like, I think we hit it out the gates in the first big one of the year. It felt like we were really riding high from that. Now we now regressed with our close game dragon or whatever. So I think you're right. Like, get it done and then it's on to the next thing, right? But to me, I keep going to that overtime, and it's everything but the overtime. To me, was like that was that was like regressing. That was like we felt like we went back in time to like 2021 or something. That. Like, can we block? Can we protect our quarterback in the clutch? And I think that's my biggest question mark. Can we protect our quarterback in the clutch?
You said that in the recap, and it's so spot on. Like, it took you saying that for me to really like go, yes, that's what it is. Like, a lot of the not being able to get it done offensively late, it comes, if you just think about it, it's all protecting the quarterback. And especially it's one thing like you can't protect, sorry, no offense to like Heinrich Harburg, but it's like, is Harburg really going to like Dan Marino you down the field? Probably not. Yeah. But like Dylan will.
Yeah.
If you give Dylan time, he's going to win the game for you. Yeah. And so it just, you're right. Like that game, it didn't feel like, boy, here we go. This feels a lot like until overtime. And then in overtime, it was like, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, it was bad on both sides of the ball in overtime, but the offense, like that brought back more bad memories. Watching Adrian Martinez, Martinez had some good moments obviously in his career, but he had some bad moments, in the clutch, I would say, like, decision-making, things like that. Yeah. But really, he got sacked a lot in those situations.
Or just had no time.
I will defend him in that sense that, like, he did not get a lot of time to do anything because we were not willing to protect him. Like, we were not clutch. We were not schemed correctly to where, like, you're giving him a chance. Like, whatever you got to do to protect him, you got to give your guys a chance to like get the ball off. And I think we watched years of that where we weren't protecting the quarterback or giving him a chance to make a play, right? Yes. And then it's on the QB and the receivers, like, go make it happen, make smart decisions.
Okay, we had a few technical difficulties there. We're back. You were talking about, because it's so true, just in the clutch, like the ability to protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
And so you're exactly right. I just thought it was interesting when I'm listening to Rule talk and he brings up that, like, just back to talking about guys tightening up and all that stuff. I don't know what it is. To me, it's and he even brought it up. It's the chicken or the egg thing. Like, how do you become a winning program where you have to win? Or do you have to do,
they have to see it. They have to see it happen.
It's just, boy, I really do feel like their next close game, they better win it. Or it's the demons and that are going to creep up even more as I'm kind of just hammering through these things. By the way, we're going to be talking about the club here in a little bit. So make sure you're ready for the club.
I'm ready.
Hey, to just bounce around things that are ranting here. I think the other thing that causes a little bit of frustration amongst the fan base, what I think the fan base is really tired of is bad special teams. Yeah. And what the hell's wrong, Bo? Like, you played special teams. Why has it been so hard, so elusive, so challenging to be good on special teams? It feels like Nebraska's not had a reliable kicker in a really long time.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
We were spoiled though. I mean, we had great kickers and punters for 20 years. So we have a pretty high bar. And I don't know, we have really struggled to find reliable kickers,
And it feels like reliable kickers, a good punt returner, probably haven't had one since DeMornay Pearson-L, and that's 10 years ago. I think that's the other thing that people just are like, come on. You do wonder how in the NIL world, how can you not just go out and, like, buy the best kicker?
I mean, you probably should. For us, I do think a good kicker wins us 2 games a year. I really think that. I'd say 2 on the leg alone. Like, good kickoffs to get it out, like, in the end zone. Good punts, and, like, making the majority of your field goals.
Yeah, because now
and being a threat to kick the field goal, so you don't have to, like, always weigh, like, oh man, it's a 35-yard field goal. Do we have to go for it because our kicker we can't trust to make a 35-yarder or a 38-yarder?
Well, that's what'll be interesting now is, like, let's say this weekend, and it's possible, it's 17-14, and you get stuffed on third down, and it's a 34-yard field goal. Are you going for it?
You start pressing is what you do. You start pressing because you don't trust. Versus when you got a great kicker, you call him out quickly. I really think that there's way less debate on fourth down if your kicker's awesome because you just kind of say, well, that's a guaranteed 3 points.
Right, you get to a certain point, you're like, got 3.
When you just can say, I got 3, you start taking it a lot more frequently, and I always feel the comfort in that. I mean, you watch that's the difference between the college and the pro game, though. When everybody's a great kicker, man, every game it's a 3-point game, and the kickers play a huge part in it.
Okay, next thing. How do you feel about Nebraska's rush game right now? Like they're 87th nationally in rushing offense. They're averaging about 140 yards per game. Like one thing you and I talked about at the start of the year was, or in the offseason was like, I was a little worried about running the ball without running the quarterback. I think some people got lulled into this false sense of security of the run game last year when the vast majority of the production was from Harburg and Jeff Sims.
Yeah.
Like we've said, I don't think there's an elite running back on the roster. I actually, in a weird way, though, feel better about the running backs than I did at the start of the season. How do you feel about Nebraska's run game right now?
I feel okay. I mean, I just don't feel like we're dangerous, maybe. I think our running backs are doing a good job. I think our line's been okay blocking, but I don't feel like we are dominating. I don't feel like we're controlling things with the run game, which I was hoping that we were going to have more of a presence in that department so that we can play action, control the clock, all the things that come from when you've established a run game.
Agree. It'll be interesting to see because they need to find that. You're right. They're not overly dangerous, but I don't know. I'm not sure where everything's at right now with Nebraska's rush offense. It's crazy. I mean, look at the stats from last year. I mean, they had a top 40 rushing offense. I mean,
we ran it a lot.
But still, and teams knew that, and they still were able to run the ball. So got to kind of figure that out. Okay, the club. Before we get into the club I can't believe this has evolved into doing this each week. I got to tell you, if you don't have any plans for this Sunday, you need to check out Dane Cook on his fresh new flavor tour. He is going to be in Omaha at the Steel House Sunday, September 29th, 7:30. Great way to recap or kind of cap off a great weekend is go check out Dane Cook. Go to steelhouseomaha.com for tickets. That's steelhouseomaha.com for tickets. Again, we talked about Dane Cook. He's one of he's one of the handful of comedians that was everybody. He's got a little something to him that whether it's physical comedy, something. He's fantastic. Vicious Circle. We talked about his Comedy Central special. Fantastic. So make sure you go check out Dane Cook this Sunday, September 29th, 7:30, Steelhouse Omaha. Again, get tickets, steelhouseomaha.com. That's steelhouseomaha.com. And we're brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. The local team at Pella, they are fantastic. Working with Debbie and Vince and the whole crew to help find the perfect fit for our home during our free in-home consultation was really, really helpful. And then visiting the showroom was helpful as well. So you can actually see and feel what you're going to be installing into your home rather than just necessarily looking at it on a screen or in a magazine. When you can actually go touch it and feel it, it really helps make sure that your selections are the perfect choice. The installation experts for coming to my home, they were on time, professional, courteous. They left their house cleaner than they found it. Call the Omaha or Lincoln showroom or go to PellaOmaha.com to find out how you can get $100 and new windows and doors starting $122 a month. That's PellaOmaha.com. That's PellaOmaha.com. Okay. If this was a radio show, we would play 50 Cent in the club.
Oh, yeah.
Go shorty. All right. So last week, the club looked like this. Dylan Raiola, Ty Robinson, Polar Bear, Gifford, Tommy Hill. I had the Gourmet Grill as Nair, Banks, Ramir, Raiden, a.k.a. Barney, Hartzog. I think I made an executive decision in putting Jamari Butler at the Gourmet Grill. And then the Ubers were Fedoni, Benhart, and Dowdell.
And I had Butler in an Uber.
You sent Butler in an Uber. I said, say that to his face. And then we brought him out.
Remember, yeah. And I was like,
all right. I got new club. I got some new club.
You got more than one new club member.
Here we go. You ready?
You got more than one?
You got
more than one new member to the club.
I think I do. Yes.
Okay. I had one new member. But I want to hear yours first.
You ready for Nick Baugh's September 25th Purdue week in the club?
I want to hear who's in the club. Okay, the bouncer comes the door. Who's
Here
going?
it is. Dylan Raiola. Don't even, man.
Straight to the
It's
back,
just
Dylan.
tap you up. You come in. Matter of fact, we're going to give him a key to the club.
Yeah,
you can come in wherever. You just come and go, okay? I'd like to let me just do it. Ty, I'm going to still keep Ty in the club. Ty,
back.
You're in there, man. Don't just step it up a little bit, all right? You're good, okay? I'd like to introduce to you. Well, then Gifford. I'm going to put Gifford in the club.
Gifford, right to the
you
back.
in the club.
Right to the back. Right to the back.
What up, man? Yeah. Okay. Now I'd like to introduce to you my 2 new members in the club.
2 new, not 1, 2.
Allow me to open the car door to the limousine that's and I'd like to introduce to you John Bullock.
Oh, no.
John Bullock, welcome to the club, big dog. You in the club in my book.
Nobody has earned their way into the club more than John Bullock.
He went from not even in an Uber to in the club.
I think
he's balling.
He got into an Uber after the first game, maybe after the first week. Then he just got to the Gourmet Grill last week.
Yes.
But he was pushing the threshold. And then I think it became pretty clear that there was one guy that was playing flat out all game against Illinois, and it's John Bullock. He has been the most dependable person on that defense.
On that defense.
I think his worst game was maybe the first game he was a little rusty, but he has progressively gotten better each game. He's probably playing the best on the whole defense right now.
Yeah, I think you could make an argument other than Dylan. You could make a case that the second best, just if you're just looking at who's balled out, Bullock might be number 2.
I think that's fair.
So Bullock, welcome to the club.
We made Bullock earn it too. You know what? Some people we just put in. Bullock earned it.
Real quick, do we want Stacy Carosi or Jesse Spano to show
Carosi?
Okay, Stacy, come
He's
here.
earned that too.
John, I'd like to introduce you to, this is Stacy Carosi. She works at Malibu Sands in the summer, but she helps us out of the club in the season. Stacy, meet John Bullock. Take him to the VIP table. Okay, you ready for the next member of the club?
This is where I have no idea where you're going. If you go somewhere, I'm gonna laugh at you. But
Isaiah Nair, you're in the club.
Nair's in the club.
I'm putting Nair in the club. I demoted. He was in the club when we were having 6 in the club.
Yeah.
I demoted him out of the club.
He got demoted.
But now I'm watching that game unfold, and I'm like, I don't know how you don't have Nair in the club. I think he's Dylan's favorite receiver.
If he doesn't get ripped, though, he got ripped.
I'm not as hard on. I thought Lloyd's was a little more like Debo, give me your chain.
Yeah.
It felt like, and then Nair redeemed himself with the great catch in the goal line then as well.
He did make that. He's catching touchdowns every week. Okay, so Tommy's out. Polar Bear's out.
Tommy's out because he's hurt, and he
got burned.
And he got burned. When you get burned that bad,
Bullock
Lord
in,
have mercy.
Nair back in.
So I got the Polar Bear out. Now, would I say this to the Polar Bear's face? Probably not.
Here's what we do.
So
let's put Polar Bear and Tommy in a rickshaw. Run them over to the Gourmet Grill, and
let's get him fed.
We're going to get Polar Bear so much food, he's not going to know what hit him, okay?
He just needs some food.
He's a carnivore, and we need to give him as much gyros as possible right now. And so he doesn't have to think about that he's missing out on being in that club.
That's it.
But he has I think with Nair being borderline, like a big week from the Polar Bear puts him back in the club. But he kind of has disappeared the last couple weeks.
I don't want to be mean, and you would have a better sense than I would. I just don't feel like I felt Polar Bear a lot this year.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think right now Ty's at a little different level, but same even with Ty. Ty's going to have to, he's going to have to flash a little bit the next couple weeks. I mean, I think he's safe. He's safe right now, but right now there might be some guys on the offensive side if they start balling like
Banks.
Yeah, I mean, right now we got 3 defenders, 2 offensive players, but we had 4 on D. So it's going to be especially if we can win some games, it's going to be tough sledding to stay in this club.
So are we good? We're good with Dylan, Bullock, Nair, Ty, Gifford, all in the club.
Yes. Gourmet Grill is.
I got Polar Bear.
We
got Tommy Hill, right?
Tommy, yep. They were taking a rickshaw right to it.
Tommy Hill. Banks is in that mug to me.
Banks is in. Fedoni's in. He had 2 catches, had a nice game.
Fedoni.
Ramir.
Do you want Raiden or do we want Ramir?
Raiden over Ramir.
I agree. I say we go.
Ramir's been the Uber? Send him in the Uber?
Let's put Ramir in an Uber, and we're putting Raiden at the Gourmet Grill, a.k.a. Ja'Cory Barney. Ramir. And what are we doing with Jamari Butler?
Butler's in an Uber to me. He's been driving around all night. He was not.
What about? I think I put Dowdell in an Uber.
Dowdell's
last week. Is Dowdell still in an Uber? What about Hartzog?
We have Hartzog was in an Uber. Ben Hart was in an Uber XL with a DoorDash to Jimmy John's.
What are we doing with these people? Okay.
And now the question is Hartzog? The safeties had a bad game. Like Singleton
is
had a
yes. It was a bad game for the safety.
But does Hartzog by association with the safeties? Like, I don't know. I mean,
we need to start being a little more like. Who do we really want? Do we want Ramir and Butler in an Uber, and that's it?
So Ben Hart is just we took him home.
What about Ben Scott? We'll put Ben Hart. Let's put Ben Hart.
Ben Hart had his.
Do you want Dowdell in an Uber or no?
I think Dowdell and Ramir should be in an Uber.
I agree.
Maybe. Is Butler still in the Uber? Butler's still in an Uber.
He won the Brooke Behringer Award.
He did.
Okay.
He didn't play, but you gave it. You gave him for that.
He won the Brooke Award. Come on, man.
Okay, so let's be generous. Okay, Hartzog, I don't think he earned a true demotion from the Uber.
Let's keep him in the Uber, but
Butler's in an Uber.
He's in one of those Ubers that smells funny.
Yeah, like.
And you got like an overly talkative guy.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we should like we ordered the less good Uber for him.
Hartzog's in a stinky Uber.
Yeah, stinky Uber. And Ramir and Dante Dowdell, we made them ride together.
They need to think. They need to come together as one unit. Okay, I like it. I feel good about this. I feel this might be my favorite club that I've seen.
I like that when we have more than one offensive player. That always makes me feel better about it.
Yes,
but it was hard.
I just think if we're keeping it real, Dylan, Bullock, Nair, Ty Robinson, Gifford. That feels right.
That feels right. The interesting thing with Nair is like if Barney or Banks,
what happens?
Or Fedoni start playing out of their mind, like that'd be a quick flip.
Because Banks is, I love what Banks has done too, but it just seems like Nair's got to be the guy.
Nair's the guy.
Okay, we feel good about the club.
Feel like we're
I look forward to my Twitter exploding during the game with various people getting put in and out of the club.
Ooh, it's hard to demote the polar bear just because he's.
Yeah, I do feel like you said I made you say you gotta tell Jamari Butler to his face. I mean, I have to tell a polar bear.
He's gonna be
just gonna pin me
in a wrestling
like lay
ring.
on
Like,
me.
you want to say something? You'd be like,
no sir, Nash.
Here's the thing.
Are you hungry?
You heard of the Gourmet Grill?
They have the best chicken strips if you would like. No. Anyways, no. So
food one day there.
I feel good about it. Okay. Purdue, Nebraska. Ready to break it downtown?
Yes, sir.
Spread is around. It's like a 10. Feels high. Over under 48.5. But Purdue struggled. They're 1-2. Indiana State waxed them, but then got crushed by Notre Dame and got crushed by Oregon State.
Yeah.
Purdue's rush defense has been just atrocious. They rank 131st in the country. They're giving up 269 yards per game on the ground. There are only 2 teams worse in the country at stopping the run than Purdue. They gave up 341 yards of rushing to Oregon State and 362 yards of rushing to Notre Dame. Now, what's interesting, though, is a good chunk of those yards, or a decent chunk of it, was both those teams had mobile quarterbacks. Notre Dame's quarterback had 11 carries, 100 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Oregon State's quarterback had 10 carries, 66 yards. So some of their issues could be dealing with those the mobile quarterbacks, but that's giving up 269 yards a game on the ground.
You want to talk about hitting the panic button. Like when you see those kind of numbers,
you go
your team's defense. That's when you hit the panic. Like that's where, we have an opportunity to shore up our run game here.
Exactly.
And get some confidence, because this is a team this is not what they do well. So I would love to see us give them a heavy dose of the run offense and try to just control the game.
Because that's what I couldn't agree more. You remember we talked about how it kind of felt like there was a potential perfect storm for a letdown against Northern Iowa because of all those circumstances. I think this Purdue game feels like it's lining up for a perfect storm for Nebraska to go play pretty well.
Yeah.
Like Purdue isn't very good. Like we just said, they struggle to stop the run. Their head coach is still really young. You know, Bielema is like a grizzled veteran, like he's going to for sure have his guys ready to rock. Purdue's confidence has to be a little shook. I mean, they are getting blasted by these teams. You combine all of those things with Nebraska, a tough loss. They're going to get challenged all week to be more physical. You know, I guarantee it's been you've been a part of those weeks of practice where they're, your manhood's being called into question, all those things, rules on them, Tony White's on them. I think the defense wants to make a statement, and Nebraska's offense will be able to run the ball. Like, so I look at all that and I'm like, that's a pretty good, perfect storm to think that Nebraska's going to go play pretty good.
Yeah, for me, just reading a little bit about Purdue and the makeup of their team, and obviously new coach, young coach, but they lost their best player, which was a pass rusher. They lost him in the portal to Texas A&M.
Yep,
they've lost a couple of good receivers, right? So to me, this signals to me like this is a team that would if they don't lose those guys, we have to go on the road where it's noisy and they got a really good pass rusher. Like those things make me a little go, oof, that's not the situation I love to see. But like this is like, I think it's playing into our hands in the sense of like they don't have their elite pass rusher, they don't have their elite receivers. So the advantages you get home from like those, I feel like those positions, especially the pass rush, when the offense can't hear as well. Like those always are a recipe for disaster typically, and I think we kind of got. It's kind of playing to our favor right now. It's
a big game for Nebraska. I mean, because it's probably, and I hate to do this, like the easiest game left on the schedule. This might be it. This or UCLA right now at home.
It's the easiest road game for sure.
Yes, but it's a road game, first road game of the year.
Yeah,
and then who knows where Nebraska's at psychologically? Who knows? Yeah. Again, I think they're going to respond, but you never know. That overtime was bad enough that you're like Austin Powers when he lost his mojo.
Yeah,
that's not good. Hudson Card, their quarterback, is capable. They're offensively, they're not horrible. Devin Maccabee's pretty good.
Maccabee's got the crazy legs.
He's the kicking mule, He's got 36 carries, 272 yards on the season. He's averaging about 7 yards per carry.
He's a good player. He'll run hard.
I think it's a get right game for Nebraska's run game against Purdue's rush defense, which I think then it helps take pressure off of Dylan Raiola in his first road game. Like I think there's a world where you can come out and like Dylan's just handing the ball off to Dowdell and they're able to march down the field and score. Yeah. So he doesn't feel like he's got to go all world Joe Montana on him like he did last week and making tight window throws and having to carry things and throw for 300. And then I think the defense, I got to imagine that defense is pissed off. They're locked in. They tighten things up. For what we talked about, like from a schematic standpoint and understanding your assignments and details of those kinds of things, because it goes both ways. Like we talk about like, it's on film and these other teams can see that and they're going to do it. It's also on film for your guys to learn too. I think they're going to be able to slow down Maccabee. I think Nebraska's going to win. I'll say like 30-20 in that area. I think
that's fair.
But 20 feels like a lot to give up, but I don't know. I mean, we do this stuff where we like to act like Purdue's like, who would win in a game? Norfolk Catholic or Purdue? It's like, come on.
They're a Big Ten team. Like, in the end, like every Big Ten team can beat any other Big Ten team almost. Like, sans maybe Ohio State, like, will not lose to the worst Big Ten team, but like.
Right. I thought Chattel had a line in either his Monday column or what that struck me where he was like, keep in mind, Rutgers, Indiana, those teams, they're looking at Nebraska and saying, well, that's a win.
Yeah.
Like I know that's hard for us because we never think about it that way. What's
interesting though is, do they really? Like, I mean, not in the sense of like, yes, they think it's a win, but it's
I think they think it's an easy game. I don't think I think most Purdue fans this week are getting ready to go to the game or turn on the game and they go, oh, I got Nebraska this week, and they're not scared.
See, like, to me, it's like, even if like, let's say Penn State's having like a down year, like they have a two down years, I still think of Penn State in a down year very differently than I think of like Maryland in a down year.
But,
you know what I mean? Like,
I know, but here's the thing, Bo, is it's been Penn State's still winning they're winning 10 plus games a year frequently.
I know. I'm just saying, like, is there enough history there that, that like,
I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
The history, plays a part in that, even though maybe it doesn't deserve to. It might not deserve to at all. I mean, our 20-year history.
Yeah, like when last year, like Louisville basketball had like a historically bad 2-year run. But Louisville basketball's been good.
Yeah, and you're still playing Louisville, you're like, well, it's still. I mean, you wonder, does NC State, when they're hosting Louisville, is like still Louisville, or are they like, this team stinks? I think it's harder to get to stinks with the teams that have historically been to the highest of highs.
I think at one point, regardless of what was going on, when the Big Red Inn came walking into your stadium, there was a little bit of like, oh, shit.
Oh, yeah, and I think people tried to get back at us for years. Like, we won so much that it felt like when we were down, everybody relished in the chance to take their shot, right? To get their win, to do a blowout, to sort of like, hey, you beat us for 30 or 40 straight years. Like, now we get to embarrass you. Like, everybody kind of basked in that for a while. And okay, whatever. But like, I don't think they ever. It never felt like they were looking past us. It was like, no, we're especially trying to make you, like, dig it into you right now. Why we can.
I just don't think.
Maybe not anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Chattel's comment made me kind of realize, like, yeah, we never put it the other way. Like, right now, everybody here is like, oh, Purdue, come on. Yeah. Where Purdue's probably going, Nebraska, like, what are they?
Us and it's like they were saying, oh, at least it's not Ohio State or Michigan or
right. I mean,
Purdue, Oregon. Right? They're happy to see us and not them, but I don't think they're saying that's a win. I really don't think they're saying that.
Yeah,
like,
probably
we would
not.
See Illinois right now, we're not like, oh, that's a win. We'd be like, no, that's not a win.
Right.
It's Illinois, but it's not a win.
No, but it's certainly not. I think the way we view it. I guess my point is like how Nebraska views Purdue. Purdue equally views Nebraska that way. Like how I don't think anyone necessarily goes Purdue win easy, but they go like it's an easier game in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, maybe maybe I'm too biased that I have a hard
because
time
Purdue's had more success, like way more success than Nebraska has in the past 5-10 years.
I know, it's scary to say that.
It's crazy to say out loud, but that's just the truth of the matter. So, but I do. Are you vibing with me though that it feels like there's like. There's a combination for a perfect storm for Nebraska to go play well.
It seems like it.
But the big variables I don't know is first road game just presents weird challenges.
Yeah.
And first road game for a freshman quarterback. For as much as I want to marry Dylan Raiola, it's just very first road game he's ever played in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And then the psychological element for Nebraska, like where those three things. Like I think as if Nebraska's right here and they're ready to play, they should be. I think they're better than Purdue. But It's just because it is crazy to think that like all it takes, and here we go, we're going to get thrown back into if prison. If Lindenmeyer just catches that ball, Raiola puts it on him, he catches it, Nebraska might be a top 20 team, and they're like very much in the thick of like big conversations. Yeah. But now you're talking about like,
funny though, is like one loss to a ranked Illinois team. I mean, I think we got a long way to go, obviously, but like one loss isn't the end of the world in the big picture of things. If you can keep on winning. If you can win the next 3, I mean, God, it's going to be a fun season still.
I went back and checked. You and I both had them, like, I had them losing. I think you had them losing to Rutgers. And I had them losing this Purdue game. And the reason I bring that up to say that, like, it's funny how we freak out, but we had, like, I didn't predict them to be 7-0.
Oh, I think I had.
I can't remember who you had them losing to. I'm trying to but I'm saying who, like in the first 7, I had them losing to Purdue, and I want to say you had them losing to Rutgers.
I think that's right.
So I guess I say that to say like they're kind of where people kind of thought they would be. You know,
we got two on the bandwagon of like when the national pundits start talking 7-0, everybody believed it.
And it seemed easy.
I know.
You smashed Colorado. You had Bud Crawford leading them out. It just, everything felt like it's happening here. Like here, here it goes.
Check ourselves in that moment. We did.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up. I mean, it looks like we have some new members of
the support group, the If support group.
The If support group. So we got to go. We got to go to the If support group. We'll catch you on the recap.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.